Your story is waiting for you today. Your story has something new to say. But your story will only come out to play when you're alone. Alone. Alone in a room with invisible people.
The following episode may contain swearing. Alone in a Room with Invisible People is brought to you by hollyswritingclasses.com. Hi, I'm Rebecca Gallardo, the host of Alone in a Room with Invisible People. I am here today with author and teacher Holly Lyle, and our topic is competition versus cooperation between writers. Before we get into our topic, just as always, we're going to discuss how we went about our week. And Holly, you first.
I did a lot of writing this week. Over 7,000 words of fiction. I think 4,000 or 5,000 words of lesson and worksheets and stuff like that. Bunch of blogging. This week I did 1,500 words on Dead Man's Party, and I got my characters in some serious, awesome trouble. The titular Dead Man is in really big trouble right now. Emerald Sun, I got 1,500 words on that. The kids are in trouble, really big trouble. And that's this very start. I got the book started this week. I actually got the first couple of scenes done. And oh my God, it's so nice to be back in that world. And the Wishbone Conspiracy, I wrote 4,000 words on that this week. And Katie and Tangerine Katie is in trouble. And Tangerine showed up, which Tangerine was this one scene character from Hunting the Corrigan's Blood. And there are some rules that you follow with characters, one of which is if you don't want them to ever show up again, you don't fucking name them. And not only did I name him, I made him funny and interesting, and I liked him when I met him, and all of a sudden, in the back of my mind, I knew that he wasn't who he was. And this was way back in Hunting the Corrigan's Blood in, 1997? Something like that? When I wrote that damn thing?
That must have been 96, because
Yeah.
it was published in 97.
You're right. So, yeah, 1996. And he has been riding around in the back of my head, and he did not show up in Warpaint. He did not show up in any of the Longview series, thank you. But I was writing along in a scene, and all of a sudden he showed up in this scene. And not only did he show up in it, he stole it. And not only did he steal it, but he became an important character in the book, just like that. And he's going to get his own book. You know, it's like book 7 or book 8, and what I'm planning is a 10-book series. But he showed up here. And damn, if he didn't make himself necessary to the plot of the book. And I was so happy to see him back. So that was my fiction week. And I got a really good lesson and a really good worksheet done this week for how to write a novel. And I'm going to hand over to you.
Oh, mine is just really short, because I was taking off 2 weeks for the cool down period before the revision. And I just started brain dumping, because I know we had the discussion about what after my taxes, my dismal income, and that I want to make fiction the focus this year. Yeah. So I started brain dumping all these ideas. And even though this week has been taxes heavy and I've been really busy doing other things, I have been trying to make sure that I make time to figure out where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, what the next round is. And I think after the podcast today, we're going to be talking fiction for me, and self-pubbing versus the traditional, figuring out what I want to do with what series. So that really has been an eye-opener. And also I've been rereading Atomic Habits, and there was another book that I just started reading that was I don't know, I'll have to mention it at a different time, but I'm rereading Atomic Habits. Deep Work. Rereading Deep Work by, I think, Cal Newton or something. Mm-hmm. And it kind of strikes you because you start to see all the unnecessary shit in your life, all the things that you're doing that you don't do. You start to wonder about, like, okay, well, I was more prolific at this point in my life. What was going on, and how can I kind of bring back that prolific bits? But it's not like you want to go back in the past. So I have
Right. It's how can I move forward into the prolific bits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking, like yesterday, I just started absolutely decluttering for about an hour, just hour and a half, just finding all of these things that were completely unnecessary.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's me making space for this person that I want to be. And part of the thing in Atomic Habits that he says is it's not building these habits. It's not just that. It's identifying with the person you want to be. So, for instance, when he says this, like he uses smoking as an example, one person says, they're offered a cigarette and one person says, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. The other person says, no, I'm not a smoker. It's about the identity. So you need to decide like who you want to be. And this is what I had done when I was when I wanted to be an artist. This was the switch in my head, just like with you and the writer. Mm-hmm. You need to choose who you want to be, and then your actions have to portray that identity that you have. So that's when you start making habits stick, is habits built around this identity of the person you want to be. So part of that is getting rid of a whole bunch of shit that is just cluttering up my house. And it's amazing that stuff can be there and not do anything, but it's still taking up visual and mental space. Mm-hmm. That was one of the bigger eye-opening things is that it's just getting rid of something that has been sitting there for a long time clears up a certain amount of room in your brain to continue doing other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, did 6 years of decluttering and it still surprises me. And just for anybody listening, my mom called me a pack rat. That is a euphemism. I was for sure a hoarder. My husband and I lived in a 600 square foot studio apartment.
It was really tiny.
Yeah. And we ended up filling a 26-foot Penske to the door. Like, we had trouble shutting it. And then we also had to fill our Ford Taurus up with more stuff. So, yeah. See, it's that identity thing. I was a hoarder, but no, I am a hoarder and I have to be careful of this. So, yeah, that was my week. My week has been figuring out where I want to go next. We talked about how to revise your novel. I will be starting to do Glass House soon. For all of you who voted, I am going to Take a Chance on Me out of its misery in that voting poll.
Gonna call time and death on that one, huh?
Yeah, I should have done that months ago. But yeah, we can shut down the poll. Obviously, it's not gonna have a Hail Mary full of, last minute votes. So
700 people show up and go, no, the first novel.
Yes. So that was my week.
Oh, that is a really good week. And damn it, sometimes you've got to just take a break. So before we step into our actual topic today, I want to just take a second to kind of sideline into something that I have been discovering, am kind of getting kicked in the butt with because I feel stupid for not having discovered it way before this. Like I said, I mentioned that I got like 7,000 words of fiction this week, not including my regular work stuff. Got all of my stuff done, have not been working crazy extra hours. And this has been revelatory for me because I have been, I don't even know how to say this. I have been thinking that it is going to take me as long to write a novel independently as it took me to write one commercially, that I could plan on one book a year, maximum. And I was thinking that would be an appropriate pace and that would be good enough. And I haven't even really been doing that because things got, well, things got really shitty there for a while. With the possibility that I had a brain tumor, and then the fact that I had tongue cancer, and then a bunch of surgeries, and the website breaking, and I got really, really diverted away from my fiction and kind of lost my way for a while. But coming back to it, I still had the wrong mindset. I had this mindset of I will do one book a year because that's what writers do. And then I started doing Dead Man's Party while writing How to Write a Novel, which is a massive class. I mean, it has bells and whistles and a flying monkey. It's just everything it's oh my God, it's such a big class, and there's so much work to it because each page has all of this stuff that goes into it. And you have to put together an assignment and a worksheet and a lesson and demos and the novel in print form and the video of me writing the novel live, and then all of the discussions I'm doing on the forum. And you start listing this stuff and you think, okay, well, I really can't do anything else. But then I was writing Dead Man's Party for 1 hour a day. And the novel will be done when I finish the class because I set it up that way. 1,515 words, one chapter per lesson from week 5 on. Full-length novel, 50,000 words. I figured it to come out to that amount. I have nailed the deadline every time, and that's only writing fiction 1 day a week. And I went,
Now, okay, so you said one hour a day.
Right.
When you said writing Dead Man's Party.
Right, but that was.
But
that
now
is,
you just said writing fiction 1 day a week.
Right, that was
so
only writing fiction 1 day a week. That was one novel that will be done in just a few months when I finish the class, and a full-length novel 1 day a week. And
Okay,
I thought,
so not 1 hour a day.
Yeah, well, it's 1 hour per day. It was 1 hour. I was getting 1,515 words in about 1 hour. But
1 hour of 1 day of a week.
1 week, right? 1
Okay,
hour.
I just want that clarified because
yeah.
it can be very confusing if it's an hour a day and then
and it's a day a week, right?
Hour,
yes,
yeah.
It's 1 hour per day per week.
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, this little bell finally went off, and it said, "Wait a minute, you've got the same amount of time each morning, and if you're not thinking about writing one novel a year, how many novels a year could you do? Let's try writing another novel." So I brought up Wishbone, the Wishbone Conspiracy. I abbreviated it as Wishbone in my mind.
It was Emerald Sun, wasn't it?
Well, no, that was
that came second.
That was the thing that I was going to do, but I was still working on background for that, so I couldn't start writing it. So that was in the back of my mind, and that was still paced at the concept of novel per year. So I was going to put the background together, and once I got the background together, I was going to figure out my plot. And once I figured out my plot, I was going to start writing. But in the meantime, I thought, well, I've still got some time here. Let me see what I can do with the Wishbone Conspiracy. And I knocked out an outline in a day. I started writing almost immediately. And the voice fell into place because I've been writing that series and those characters recently with the whole Longview series. So then I thought, well, okay, so maybe I could also, if I did 1 day a week on Dead Man's Party and 2 days a week, 1 to 2 hours a day on the Wishbone Conspiracy, and then let's say 1 hour a day on for 2 days a week on Emerald Sun. Let's see how that goes. So I had finished my outline for that, so I started writing it. And it is going great. It is going great. And all of a sudden, this entire vista has opened up for me with the realization that I can do these words, that I can get this amount of work done while also doing a whole bunch of other work. And I am looking at the possibility of becoming religious about doing 4 books a year. And this is 4 novels written, revised the way I revise them, and I am brutal. Bug hunted, typeset, made beautiful, and then published. My objective is now 4 books a year. And if you want to see how this is going, I am blogging my words on my blog, hollylyle.com. It's just, you can find it right on the front page. On this little revelation that I had at this point in my life, that no, 1 book a year is fine if you were doing commercial publishing and you've got a publisher and you've got somebody who's out there flogging and promoting and doing stuff like that for you. But 4 books a year for an indie, 4 good quality, full-length, 90,000 word-ish novels, that's doable. And that's what I'm shooting for.
And now, the reason that you had brought this up, you said that it was really important to mention.
Because I have been, thank you for getting me back to that.
Yeah.
I have been reading a number of books by writers who are making bank on Amazon, who are just absolutely hauling in the loot. And they are saying the bare minimum number of books that you can do per year and make a full-time living from this is 4 books a year. And I was reading that and thinking, oh my God, there's no way you can't do that and write good books. And then I found out, yes, in fact, you can. Because I am maintaining the standards I have always maintained. I am only writing fiction 2 hours a day because I have so many other things I absolutely have to do on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And Mondays, I'm only writing 1 hour a day because after that, I have to do the video formatting and everything else that goes with that, because that's an entirely different layer of, oh my God. But I am doing 9 hours of fiction a week. I would love for my Patreon to catch up with me, but because right now I'm getting 5 hours of fiction a week funded, and it would really be helpful to have that whole thing funded. But so if you guys are into that, yay guys. If not, I'm still doing it because this is the thing that is going to allow me to do the thing that I want to do more.
Yeah, and it's feeding you.
Yeah, and it is feeding me. It is feeding my soul, even if it isn't right at the moment feeding my pocket.
Yeah. Well, that's also what you kind of see. Now, I have tried that before when I was writing under the pen name, and I was also trying to write the fiction that I was originally going to try to publish, either Glass House or there was another book that I had started too. And I tried to write 2 different things at once. I couldn't. I don't know what it was. Like I told you, maybe it was because it was romance or something at the time. I could not wrap my brain around the different works, but at the same time, I had never actually finished something all the way to a revision using the How to Revise Your Novel. I had never submitted anything before, not truly to a traditional publication. So I'm looking to try it again. I actually figured on writing 4 books a year because it was writing in one month, revising in the next 1 or 2, and then getting it out.
Yeah, but that is a perfectly legitimate system too. What I'm doing now is an experiment, and I think it's probably a little nuts.
Yeah, but who else did it, did you say?
Oh, Piers Anthony was always, but Piers Anthony was writing a series. So what, I'm doing this on lunatic level, okay? This is just absolutely bugfuck crazy. What he did was he would write 1 book. He would revise the second book, the previous book in the series, and then he would be planning the 3rd book in the series each day. And he would, and this was his full-time job. He would write first, he would revise second, he would plan 3rd. And It was a brilliant system, and he got all of those, God, I can't remember the name of his series, and I read all of them.
But that's okay.
Yeah, but
so the your plan is just three completely different novels right now,
Right. This
being
is
written at the
not
same
actually,
time.
this is not my plan. This is an experiment because
Okay.
I promised people that I would get the Moon and Sun book done. And I had to start it. But I want to write the Wishbone Conspiracy because it's been just hanging in the back of my mind. And I had to write Dead Man's Party, but now I'm absolutely hooked on it too. The only reason I can say that I think this works for me right now and why I don't think it is something I will be doing in this fashion again, I think from now on, after I get these 3 books done, I will write one book and just write the hell out of it. And then I will revise that book, and then I will get that book done while starting to write the next one, or maybe planning the next one while I'm writing the first one. But the only reason I think this works is because one of the books I'm writing is fantasy. It is YA high fantasy. That's the Moon and Sun novel. One of them is far future science fiction, and that's Wishbone Conspiracy. And then the third one, Dead Man's Party, is near future post-apocalyptic, real current Earth with some relatively high tech. So they are all 3 completely different books, and there's no bleed over between them. There are no connections. There's no place where I get lost, where I accidentally shift voice because the voices for them are completely different. It's like each day I'm somebody different. And that is that is relatively easy to do. If I were trying to write 3 novels in the same series simultaneously, I think my head would explode.
Okay. Plus, you have a lot of years of experience too. So
Yeah.
this is not something that you are suggesting other people do.
No. I am, like I said, I'm doing this on just absolute nutso mode. This is not something that you want to do this way, because this is me experimenting. I am pushing the edges of my own boundaries, and I've done a bunch of millions of words of fiction by this point. And I don't even know how many millions, but more than millions. So yeah, this is, I'm writing from a point of significant experience with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of the experience and the having been in the industry for a while, I think that this is a very good segue into the topic.
Oh,
Hold on
the
one second.
topic. Yes.
So this is this topic, I know, has always been something that you have been very passionately opinionated about. It is competition versus cooperation between writers. So go ahead.
And this is a big deal. This is such a big deal. And I have seen so many people who get this wrong and who ruin other writers and who ruin themselves. And it's painful to watch, and it is absolutely unnecessary. What we're looking for when we write is to create something magnificent that someone else will enjoy. And we get to define our standard of magnificence. We get to create our own world. We get to own a whole world, or in my case, a whole bunch of whole worlds that belong to me. I invented them. They live in my head. The characters, I make them up. I own them. And every other writer who writes does the same thing. Every other writer who has this magnificent dream of doing something cool that they can do with just, fingers on a keyboard or hands on a pen on a piece of paper and sitting in a room alone with invisible people that they run through their brains, has this same magnificent dream. And it's a hard dream, okay? The idea that you can create these people, that's not hard. The idea that you can put them on paper, that's not hard. But the idea of doing it well enough that you can get other people to want to pay you money for participating in the stuff that runs through your brain, that's hard. That's hard, and it takes work, and it takes practice, and it takes shared experience where one person can discover something and they can keep it to themselves, or they can say, hey, you know what? This is how I did this. I figured it out. I think it's pretty cool. And if they do that, they add to the community of writers. My website, I started doing this before I had even been published, when I was doing a newsletter for our writers group. And I think I did one a month. And every time I sat down and did one, I wrote a little article on what I had learned that month from writing. And at that time, I was the only writer in the writers group who had actually finished a novel. I was the only writer in the writers group who had an entire shoebox full of rejection slips. None of us had published a damn thing.
I wish I still had copies of that little Schrodinger's pet newsletter.
Yeah, there's Schrodinger's Pet Shop. Well, a lot of them I republished on my website when I got my very first website, because I thought, hey, somebody might like to read these, and the guys in my writers group liked them, and that became and those articles are still on my current website, along with like 90,000 words of other articles on how to write that I figured out over the years and just put up common knowledge. It wasn't common knowledge, it was my discoveries, my inventions, but my ways of going about things that I thought other writers might find useful.
And you started the forward motion.
Yeah, I started forward motion, and for a bunch of years, I just paid for it out of my own pocket. I never made a dime off of the thing. It damn near broke me. And then we had an attempted coup, and that was the end of it for me for some years, where I just said, "That's it, I'm out." I gave the website to a friend, and walked away and wrote books. But the thing is, I really like writers. And I really like hanging out with writers and talking to writers. I love talking shop. I love just digging in and discussing the shit that we have discovered and how we do things differently and how we see things differently. Because when you're talking to other writers, they'll do something differently than you do it. But if they explain why, you can look at that and you go, you know what? That's a really good idea, and I have never tried that, and that might help me with this problem. And, by sharing back and forth with each other, by discussing and talking shop, by helping each other figure out how to make our works better, we all get better. And better is the objective. And I need to explain why now. There are fewer readers per capita now than there were in the past, because there are so many other forms of entertainment. There are so many other things that are easier. It is so much easier to sit down and watch television, or to listen to a podcast, or to play a video game,
or just sit and stare at your phone on social media for hours on end.
Yes, or to read emails, or just.
I don't know that very many people do that.
Yeah, well,
anymore.
That's true. It probably
they'll just sit there and watch YouTube or
watch YouTube, or there are a million different things you can be doing instead of reading them, and all of them require less of you than reading, because reading is a participatory activity in which the writer creates something that the reader then has to imagine. And reading is really good for your brain, but it's not easy. It requires that you step into somebody else's brain and read their mind. And, that's sitting there and playing video games. And believe me, I am a big video game player. I like them. But sitting there playing a video game does not require anything from you but some button pushes and some nice reflexes. Occasionally, if you're doing something like Myst, it does require a certain amount of thinking things through. But Most games are not like that. Most games are fast twitch. And I like those too. But when the entire demographic of readers has other things that they can do, we have to up our game. We as writers have to get better. We have to write stuff that is at least as good as the video game that person has as their alternative. Because if we lose them, if we're boring, if we're slow, they will put the book down, they will go do some other activity, and they won't come back. So for each of us to do this, we have to get better. We have to get good, which is one of those little video game phrases that apparently gets people damn near punched in real life, where the phrase is "get good, bro," when somebody does not do well in a competition of any sort in a video game. Well, in writing, it's not like that. It's get good is something that we can get better at if we help each other. Now, here's the dark side of that. I've been in writers groups. You know, this is not new shit for me. A lot of you have been in writers groups. And every once in a while, there's this one person who will show up, or every once in a while, there are these several people who show up who think it is their duty in life to crush the competition. And they did give nasty, nasty negative reviews. They ignore the rules of this is what we are here for. They think that because they have written a whole book, they are somehow better than everybody else who at that point, pretty much everybody had written the whole book. And we had this one woman show up who was just horrible. And this was in Schrodinger's Pet Shop. This was ages ago.
A horrible writer? Or
No,
a
she was a horrible
person?
person.
Okay.
She was a horrible person. Every review she had was designed specifically to make the person who received it feel bad, to make them feel small and incompetent, to just crush their spirit and make them want to quit. And after the second meeting she attended, I kept everybody else behind and said, look, guys, we have to change the rules, because Schrodinger's Pet Shop at that point did have member rules, but we didn't have anything about removing somebody. And I said, we have to fix this, because this is not what we are about. And we put together the rules. We sent out the revised rules. We sent her a copy of the revised rules, and along with the revised rules that I mailed out, I said, by the way, you are no longer invited to meetings. We took a vote, and your attitude was, and your intent to constantly make the people around you feel small and bad and worthless does not fit with what we are trying to do in the group. And we got rid of her. And she was really bitchy about that too. But this was a hard thing to do, because people don't like to hurt other people's feelings unless they are the people who do. I know that you have had some experiences with negative stuff too. So before we go any further, without naming names or pointing fingers, just explain what you dealt with.
Well, there's been a number of occasions, but like two specific types of people, I can kind of lump them in. One is the person who believes themselves to be very, very brilliant, just doesn't have time to do the actual writing, but has, amazing ideas and, so unique and brilliant, they're going to be the next Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling.
As soon as they decide it's time to sit down and write.
Or whenever they give the book idea to someone that they can trust that their writing is good enough, and they'll split it. But if you get somebody like this who is offering to critique your work, realize it's not about your work. It's about making themselves feel superior. Mm-hmm. So just decline. that kind of bug hunter and or beta reader and or quote help unquote. The next one is the one that I believe Holly is referring to is somebody who like this woman that you were talking about. I didn't necessarily know. I didn't see it as her seeing me as competition or anything like that, which, you know, you could be right. I don't know. I don't know her brain. But she kept referring to herself as a professional with experience. Said that she had, you know, this was her, that writing was her job in some fashion, that she was a writer. And I was looking for bug hunters and had posted it, and she offered, and I thought, okay, that's cool. And she basically tore the entire book apart, not from a bug hunter stand, not even from another writer's perspective, really, because she didn't come across as somebody who ever creates anything. She was horribly unprofessional as well. So I'm not sure what she does as far as her supposed writing career, or what, because she was one of the most unprofessional people I've ever had anything come back from. So I'm not sure what exactly she does for a living or how she thinks it relates to what I do, but it was not a fit. She basically tore into who I was by destroying or attempting to destroy the light and the happiness in the book, the goodness in the book, the man-woman relationship. I don't know if people realize how much they give away of themselves when they attempt to tear somebody else down, because you have a lot of vulnerability in your heart, in your soul, in your life. You know, the past leaves you with these scars, and some of us are, you know, we try to keep them from re-breaking in the world. You know, some we put shells on or we put defensives up, but when we spew a lot of hate and anger and frustration at another person, we don't understand how much of our own scars we're showing. So I'm not entirely sure what exactly her problem was, but she hated the fact that there was even a man in the story, apparently. In
Probably
the romance.
Shouldn't be reading male-female romance in that case.
Yeah, and I mean, I clarified with everybody before they read the book. I'm like, it's a romance. It's not erotica. It's has sex scenes. It's you know, it's man woman, because I have a lot of stuff that was man man. I have some stuff that was woman woman, and this one was this. You know, that's what I was writing. I was writing MF. And everything was okay, but, you know, he came, what amazed me was the fact that, to me, the main character, the love interest, the male, was very, I was writing him as a caring person, as you know, somebody who worried about her, but according to this particular reader, you know, he was very aggressive and dominant and a bully and controlling and
he wasn't any of those things. He was just a guy who was very testosterone, I really liked him.
I mean, it's just that perception.
Yeah.
So, but she tore down everything, every single. There was no good. And if somebody reviews your stuff and doesn't point out the things that they liked or the good things about your story, realize that might too be somebody trying out to destroy your work or to put you down or to make themselves feel better. And she joked which is the part that was so unprofessional. There were many places where she would.
She was snarky. It wasn't joking. It was snarky.
It wasn't even. I can understand snark. This was. Oh my god. This was basically. Oh my god, you are such a bad writer. LOL. That's basically. And she would tell me to look up words because, like, look this up because this is what this entire scene is, and it would be something like melodrama or saccharine, basically. And it just
she was a douchebag.
Yeah. It was somebody who just was so angry and embittered and frustrated, and I don't know why, but they took it out on another writer.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if she's actually a writer. I have no idea. I have learned to vet my bug hunters. But this is important because I don't want other people to go through this kind of thing. Because even with I've had years of experience. I've had my mom, as a critic and a critiquer and a bug hunter, and when she says she's brutal, it's true. If something doesn't have a point, it's and it doesn't matter what age I was. It was like, well, what's the point of this?
Right.
So that to me is brutal. This was an attempted assassination, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what this girl was doing.
Yeah,
but
that's it. That was the attempt to wipe out the competition.
I don't know. Again, I don't see her in her head, but I think she's just a very, very angry, depressed, sad person that takes everything out on other people, including, unfortunately, men. So I feel very bad for, her husband. But if you are a person and you're getting this kind of feedback, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to realize that, though.
Yeah.
Because even after dealing with, years and years and years of... I've had bad reviews. I've had shitty people come to me and say stuff. But don't... It's hard to say don't take it personally, but work on it. Work on not taking it personally. Work on not listening to it. Work on finding other people to review your stuff. Even if this is a spouse, even if this is a family member, don't trust them to do your critiques anymore. Find somebody else. Find somebody at hollyswritingclasses.com. Somewhere where somebody will be honest and not detrimental to your future, because that was hard for even me to get over, because you have to lift the blinders off. And looking at it now, I can see what it was. Looking at it the first time, it was crushing.
Yeah.
And that was the intention.
Right.
Whether or not she saw me as competition or not, her point wasn't to help. Her point was to hurt. And there is a difference between not being able to take criticism and realizing something isn't criticism in the first place.
Right, yeah. You have to be able to identify assassination attempts. And one of the things that we do in the Holly's Writing Classes community, we have rules. And the rule is, if you are doing a crit, you mention the good first. You mention the bad as constructively as possible. You do not ever attack the writer. You discuss the writing, not the writer. You do not ever make those little side of the mouth snide jokes about how the writer needs to learn something. Because we will kick your ass out if you do that. If we get a complaint and they can verify it by demonstrating to me that this is in fact what you wrote, you're out. And I have only had to remove 2 people in the last, as long as the site has been there, I've only had to remove 2 people. But I removed them.
There's one thing about Holly, is that she's a bit of a reaction-based person, and if there is cause, there's no, oh, well, maybe, well, this person has a lot of my class. No, it's, oh, you did what? All right, bye.
Yeah, because you don't attack other writers.
Yeah.
And I have some really good reasons for this, and I'm going to go back to my days in SIFWA, to my brand new membership days in the Science Fiction Writers of America, which I used to belong to and which I don't anymore. Another story, off topic here. There was, my first novel came out. My first novel got me just a bunch of readers because it did really well for a first novel. And there was this reviewer from a newspaper I shall not mention who was also a SIFWA member. And he wrote a really nasty thing about me to the other on what was then the Genie boards. It was the precursor to the internet. It was this bulletin board system set up by General Electric, and the Science Fiction Writers of America had their little topics in it. And it was the first time that you could be anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the world. I think there were people from England and everything there at the time, but where you could sit and talk to other writers without having to actually have met them face to face, without actually have to being in the same room. It was amazing, and it was wonderful, and it had some douchebags. And this guy was one of them. And the thing that he said that really stung me was, and he used his position of authority as this big newspaper book reviewer, was frightfully prolific but not yet good. I had at that point one novel out. One novel in print, frightfully prolific, but not yet good. I had a contract for a second that was going to be coming out within the next year, and contracts for 2 more for the next, that I was working on or working toward. And I was hurt, and I said, well, what did you not like about the novel? And he said, well, I didn't read it, but people have told me.
Wow.
Okay, right there, that's an asshole.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody who is going to assault you based not on a book they've read, but on a book someone else told them that they didn't like, and to use a position of authority to try to diminish you, that the only thing that is an asshole. So, but then he said, I was told that you misused the word midden to mean lunch. And I said, let me explain. I developed a language for those people in which the words medias dein was abbreviated over a period of some centuries to midden, which means the midday meal. The word was italicized in the book, denoting that it was a foreign language word, and it was described in the index at the back. And my editor laughed her fucking ass off because he did not reply to that. See, because our editors were in there too, and she had seen me getting sniped by this jerk, and this jerk who had not read my book but decided to try to trash me.
Yeah.
And I have never been a tender little flower ever.
No.
And I ripped him, and she laughed. She thought it was so great. She was so happy. But the thing is this, that there are people out there who think that this is a zero-sum game. Okay, and let me explain zero-sum game to you. It means that there are a fixed number of readers, there are a fixed number of writers, there are a fixed number of dollars that can be spent on fiction, that this is not a growing market, that this is a closed market. First off, they're stupid. You cannot believe in a zero-sum game and then look at the history of money, wherein it started with none and is now trillions of dollars and other currencies, and say, oh yes, well, it's always been the same amount of money. No, it hasn't. Money is created by people creating things. And there is always going to be, as long as individuals have the courage to create, there will always be more money, because when you create something of value, that adds value to the world, and that value translates into money that can be given back and forth to each other. So when you are writing a book, you are adding to the gross world product. You are adding to the amount of actual value that exists in the world because you wrote a book. And if you write a lot of books, you are exponentially increasing the amount of money that exists. Just because you created something of value that did not exist before. You have added worth to the world. But to get back to where I was, there are people who don't believe this. They think that all the money that is all the money that ever was. And it's, I think, because they have never actually considered where money comes from. But they think that if they crush other people, then there will be a bigger market for them. So they look at every other writer as competition, as someone to be belittled, to be humiliated, to be destroyed, to be pushed out of the arena so there's more room for them. The fallacy of this belief is that readers don't just read one writer. Readers read lots and lots of books, and really good readers, the ones that we all love to get. I think the Amazon term for them is whales. The guys who read 5 or 6 books a week or 10 books a week or some god-awful number like that, which I used to do because I could, because I had time. These are the readers that everybody wants to get. But the only way you get these readers is by having lots and lots and lots of books out there in genres that they like, so that they have stuff to read, because you can't write that fast. No matter how freaking fast you are, you cannot write 10 books a week to satisfy one whale reader.
Well, plus whale readers tend to, even though they do have like more varied taste, that doesn't mean that they're willing to read shit.
Right.
A lot of them, still want decent books, and you couldn't even write one book a week of quality stuff and revise it and put it out.
Right.
So that there's just no way.
Right. So, and they are going to, when we cooperate with each other, when we discover that we have a genre that readers like, and we are getting new readers, and we are creating our own little group, the best thing we can do is find other writers who write the same kinds of things we do, and throw our readers at those writers so that they have more stuff to read, so that they know that there are more things out there that they can buy and love. And our job is just to do the best books we can and get them out there, and then give our readers something magnificent enough that they want to stay with us and will love to buy the things that we write, but that they will also have people whose books we love that they can love too. I'm going to just throw a writer's name out here. She's one of the members of my site. She writes stuff that's a lot like mine. Her name is Barbara Lund, Lund. And she has this great in-space series going right now. And I have read it, and I love it, and I recommend it. And I have a bunch of other people on the site, other stuff that they're reading, other stuff that I'm reading of theirs. But she is someone who my science fiction guys will like, because her science fiction and my science fiction, they're not the same, but they click. So this is something we can do for each other. Because we can't write enough books to keep even relatively casual readers content. And hey, I'm going to give it a run. I'm going 4 books a year, man. I think I can do that. But people read a lot more than 4 books a year. Yeah. And I want them to have fun things to read in the meantime. So I want to be nice to my readers too. I want to say, hey, pew, this person, that person, this other guy over there. There's just so much we can do to help each other. And helping each other allows us to create a bigger body of enthusiastic readers, which means more new writers have a chance to get started. More intermediate writers have a chance to build a career that can pay them. More heavy writers have a chance to really make some serious money at this. I'm not there yet because I was focused wrong. I wasn't looking at, Well, yeah, you can do 4 books a year. I was looking at the old publishing model, and even the old publishing model was frustrating as crap. I wasn't seeing the opportunities in the way things are now, and now I am. But even with 4 books a year, I cannot keep my readers, with enough cool stuff to read that I can keep them all to myself, like some little Scrooge.
I mean, and you wouldn't necessarily want that. I mean, the idea of the things with reading is when you read one good book, it's your sad it ended, sure, but you want to read another good book, and that's the thing is good books lead to more reading, leads to more books, leads to more reading. It's just
Yeah. Well,
and
yes.
this thing in what you're saying, what you're talking about, sharing other authors' works and talking about other authors, I think that there is, I don't know, when I was writing erotica, it seemed to me like the field of erotic writers kind of understood more easily this concept of cooperation than most other authors. And so, and it bleeds into the romance field too, because our readers tend to be prolific readers. The erotica and romance reader has a very voracious appetite. And as romance and erotica writers tend to understand is that we can't keep up with that kind of just absolute hunger for the books. And I mean, you would see this lady, for instance, would come into the library every single week, and she would bring in 2 Walmart bags full of the books that she had to return, and she would grab 2 more. And what pissed me off was the librarian would always talk shit about her because the topic of the books, the genre of the books, thinking if she could read that many in 1 week, why didn't she read, quote, good books?
Oh, God.
And this is a librarian. This is somebody who is there to promote reading. And I was thinking, like, what the hell, man? At least she's not, glued to the television with her stories. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or, I mean, this is an active thing.
Right. This is a woman who's keeping her mind active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's besides the point.
That's
that's something that will always pop up is the snobbiness of people towards romance and erotica. That's always going to pop up with me. But
science fiction writers get it too. It's why don't you write something good? Why don't you write real literature? It's because, never mind, I will move on from that point without getting snarky. But yes, it's any genre is painfully susceptible to attacks from people who consider themselves non-genre readers.
The reader of a romance novel, and I know that this is different this can be the same. There are people that read very, very actively in all genres, but it seems to be that the romance novel, and you can see this in the publication models too, how they have so many different series out, and that so many different books every single season gets published in those series, and it's just this massive overturning of new products out there. And this just, I think that's how they can get away with paying so little for their authors too, is because that's the attitude, is you want more, write more. But it definitely seems to be that a lot of indie romance novelists, that a lot of indie erotica writers are supportive of each other, and they do these little blog tours where they share, the writing and they do interviews and it seems to me to be a big part of that genre is the support of other authors.
Yeah, I like that. I've noticed
Yeah.
that, and I think that kicks ass.
Yeah, so it's just something that we need to bring to the forefront of all genres.
Yeah.
It needs to be a focus. That just because somebody writes in the same genre as you, or it's not competition. It's helping. It's helping keep our job alive, in my mind.
Yeah. Well, you figure with everything that everybody can do that isn't reading, the people who read are a small percentage of the planet. And it is our job to not allow them to become a smaller percentage, to give them enough stuff to feed their hunger, enough wonderful worlds for them to fall into and fall in love with, that they tell other people who might not be readers, oh my God, you have to read this. That we give them good reasons to bring more readers into the field, and that we do this ourselves by writing more stories, but also by helping other writers learn to be better writers, because this is a case of the rising tide lifts all boats. If there are more good books out there, there will be more readers who find more good books, who go, oh, okay, this was what I was looking for. This is the thing that I want to read. This is where I want to spend my precious hard-earned money and my precious irrecoverable time in this life. I want to spend it reading this stuff. And that's the person who does that for you. Understand that person is giving you a portion of his or her life, that they are giving that to what you have created. So it is your job to create something magnificent for them. And it is our job as writers to help each other get better. Not by being dicks, not by being creative, by being destructive, and by being exclusionary, but by seeing that we are all in this together, that we are all trying to do something really difficult. We are trying to create worlds that people have never seen before, inhabited by people who exist only in our minds, and we are attempting to make these real, magnificent, beautiful adventures that somebody else can step into, that they can read our minds, which is what fiction is. It is mind reading. It is mind reading that you can do across a year, or 10 years, or 100 years, or 600 years. I read Chaucer when I was in 11th grade or 12th grade. 11th grade, I think. I read Chaucer because my teacher made me. And I fell in love with the story, the Miller's Tale and the Reeve's Tale, and the story of the Wife of Bath, which I remember to this day, because they were real people who lived 600 years ago, and I could see them in my own time and understand. And that was the first time I ever understood that people 600 years ago were a lot like us. And that was a revelation. That was astounding. It made the past come to life for me, and it was a beautiful experience that has never slipped away from me. I remember it to this day, and I understood in that moment that I had read Chaucer's mind, that I was reading his thoughts. And that is what we're doing to when we write fiction. That is what we're doing for each other. We are casting our thoughts in concrete, like little footsteps on a concrete pathway that other people, when we are long gone, will be able to follow along and understand. I had to stop there. I get a little teary-eyed. All right. So that's basically the thing here. We can cooperate. We can compete. But competing hurts all of us and cooperating helps all of us.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to say before we get to the takeaway or anything like that?
Well, okay, yeah, a little bit. I kind of got off my notes here, and I haven't mentioned yet that every new author has the potential to open up or create new genres. That you get to bring what matters to you into whatever genre you're writing, and you get to make that your version of that genre. And what you do and how you do it differently opens paths for other writers to come in. And yeah, I remember when the high-heeled urban witch thing was new, where you had the very first books came out with these sort of tough girl urban gunslinger witches who were going around fighting vampires and other creatures of the night. And it was really cool, and it was new and fresh. And then people who read that and liked it, a lot of them copied it, but some of them went, that's really cool, but what if I took that and twisted it this way a little bit and took it off in that direction, and they created a new genre. And there are an infinite number of genres that it is possible to create because life is infinite. I mean, individual life isn't, unfortunately, but the life itself is this thing that is absolutely all possibility. And you have to figure out which possibilities matter to you, and then you write them down, and you open up new doors that other people can walk through, and then find places beyond those doors where they can open their own doors. So we benefit from reading each other's work. We benefit from expanding our horizons. We benefit from discovering more than what we knew before. And it's the reason I read about 70% nonfiction and about 30% fiction these days, is because I want to be able to take my readers in places they haven't been. And I've been a lot of places, but I haven't been everywhere. So this allows me to be more places. And then from that also, I think basically that's about it. That I hit most of the notes without having to refer to the notes. So
well, like I said, it's a topic that you are passionate about and have always been very passionate about. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised that you didn't really need your notes. So I guess go ahead and give us the takeaway. And again, for anybody listening, the takeaway is just a summary to remind you of the important notes of the episode. So
okay, the summary for this, and this is for all writers, no matter where you are on the food chain, from just getting started to whale at the top. Don't be a dick. That's Will Wheaton's Law right there. Don't just. I like him. I like him. I think he's smart and funny, and I didn't like him in Star Trek, but I like him as a person. I think he's very cool. Encourage new readers. Encourage new writers. Share knowledge and discoveries. And finally, write with joy and a sense of adventure. Make sure that when you are telling a story, you love the story you're telling. Don't write something because you think you need to, or because you think it's appropriate, or because you think it would make your mother happy. Don't write something to fit somebody else's ideal. Write to let the people in your head, those wonderful invisible people in your head, leap out and come alive on the stage that you create, in the world that you create, and make your little footprints in the wet cement that people will follow behind.
Okay, so that has been our topic on competition versus cooperation between writers. Obviously, there are a lot of people affected by this in our communities. So again, you can always leave a comment on the blog, alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. But this really is more of a community kind of discuss. You can air out your grievances, or you can find the community that won't be a dick at hollyswritingclasses.com.
Exactly. And without naming names, you are welcome to tell your horror stories.
Yeah, we don't call people out. We
No.
don't. Yeah, the post will be deleted.
Yes.
So make sure that you use a fake name.
Not for yourself.
And
for anybody who wasn't, in fact, an asshole.
Yeah. So if you want, you can join absolutely 100% free forums at hollyswritingclasses.com. Just look for the episode titled Competition versus Cooperation Between Writers, and come on in and let us know what you've had to go through, or, your own feelings on the topic, because, hollyswritingclasses.com, previously all of these other sites that Holly's had to work through has always been kind of like this haven for writers where they could be safe and be themselves, and it's one of those places where we really do support each other. You can follow us on the socials at AIARWIP on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. It is Alone in a Room with Invisible People. We're on, again, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes,
YouTube.
Castbox. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
So if you hit that subscribe button, it helps. You can follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe and click the bell for notifications of the next podcast. Those kind of numbers apparently help us. I'm not sure how. We have a Patreon for the Alone in a Room with Invisible People. So if you would like to join and kind of support the podcast on a monthly basis, that is an option. We do have one reward. It should be ready for, March. And if you would like to support the podcast but not on a monthly basis, we have an option for that as well. alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. On the top right, there is a drop-down menu, and you can support us in one of 3 different tiers. If you would like to support Holly, that is also supporting the podcast. So you can buy her fiction, Amazon, Smashwords, Kobo. Just look up Holly Lyle, and lots of places. You can support her by purchasing her courses or classes as well, and that is at hollyswritingclasses.com. Hit the shop, and there is just all sorts of stuff there. Or you can become a patron at her Patreon. Again, Holly, HOLLY, Lyle, LISLE, and she has 3 tiers. You can follow her and support her fiction writing. And if you need to contact us for any reason, you can write us at show@alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. So that has been our episode today. Again, it's an important topic. We definitely don't want to see anybody shit on by negative, horrible people. And if you have had those experiences and it stopped you from writing, you have a community in hollyswritingclasses.com. Don't let some bitter, angry person destroy the good in you. And if the good in you is a writer, you got to protect that.
You're one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to write, if you want to read, that too. We love our readers, obviously. If you want to write, we protect our writers. So we are and will remain a safe place for writers. And I welcome you.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
You want to write, you love words, you love fiction, but you don't know where to start or how to middle or where to finish. I do. I'm Holly Lyle, and I've been doing this professionally since 1991. And I know how I did what I did to go pro, and I'll be happy to show you what I've learned. Start with my free 3-week flash fiction class at hollyswritingclasses.com.